pass or a match pass. Search urc.tv and subscribe now.
What I think, from time to time, is that it's all been a big mistake, and I got it wrong. And she'll come through the door and say, "What were you thinking about? Where are you going?" Then a nanosecond later, reality steps in. But there's always that presence, and it's not things that remind me of, it's just that feeling of somebody there. And that I'd made a dreadful mistake and I thought she was dead.
Now, within the last few minutes, RTE has announced the death of the broadcaster Marian Finucane. She was 69. Over the last number of decades, Marian Finucane was one of the most influential presenters on RTE radio. She's survived by her husband John and her son Jack. Yeshte Goreva Hanam.
Friends, I'd like to thank you all for coming today. It's been a horrid day, a terrible week. But I'm glad you're all here. But I did want to talk about Marian, my Marian, a woman who I've loved for 40 years. A woman who, for me, always make the colours brighter, the world a bit easier to live in. I find myself so powerless at the moment. I don't know what to do. I truly don't know what to do. And some weeks ago, we were in a township in Africa with a very old black woman. And she said to us, "The only thing I can give you are my tears." And that's all I think I can do today. Thank you.
There's a huge part of my life gone. And a huge part of that is talk and conversations and what do you think and where are we going and what are we doing and what do you think of so-and-so, on and on. We were never ending gabbing away to each other. And now I sit, don't like the radio anymore, don't like the television anymore. Just at the moment, I can't read in any... Your concentration is gone. It was a great life, for me. And I think for Marian.
Hello, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to Women Today.
She's a lady you would know as a broadcaster. Her professional training was as an architect. Many people would say she was one of the architects of the downfall of male superiority. Would you welcome, please, Marian Finucane?
Did you feel like you were a women's icon?
You must be joking. No.
She believed that radio had a unique position in Irish society.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. Hello there, and a very good morning to you. Hello there, and a very good afternoon to you. Let's move on to our headlines for today.
Anywhere we went, she was always addressed as Marian. She was a family guest every day.
What do you think makes you so controversial?
I became embroiled in controversy in part because I'm no friend of the collectivist left wing.
Anyone can go into a pub and I can guarantee you will see a single mother there. Their kids will be running around the pub unattended.
Ah, jeepers, Tricia, that's a very sweeping statement.
Well, maybe.
Even though They didn't know her. She certainly didn't know them. But most people thought they knew her, you know.
You see, Marian, no person in Ireland will die for the want of a drink.
Well, that's not what they'll tell you at 11:30 at night, but we'll let that pass. Anyway, Mary, I thought it beat Banagher that the poor devil got done as if the heart attack wasn't enough.
Could you say it again? The rest of them give information on sex to the police. That's why they don't get arrested.
That's an extraordinary report there from Marian Finucane, and allegations that the girls give sex and information to the police.
She thought she'd a bond with the listener, that together they would explore.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you.
I don't think she ever lost that concept. There was a togetherness, you know.
Would you have changed your physical attitude to Reginald modelling?
The only thing I still regret was that I wasn't cool enough to have got him by the tie and really scared him, because he would have thought I was going to kill him.
Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, good morning to you. You've just come through some big political test and looking at some of the language that was used in the papers today. Shambolic, omnishambles, dysfunctional.
We don't want to be reckless, we want to make money.
Well, the reason we're concerned about whether or not you've been reckless is that we're signing the guarantee.
Absolutely.
So we have a vested interest now, and by we I mean all the listeners had never had before.
A lot of listeners developed trust with her. And for some of them, the only voice they had was Marian's.
I just don't iron. When John does his ironing, he only does the front of the shirt, right? Which he thinks is perfectly logical, and I can see the logic in it too. But then he forgets it, and he takes it off, so he's all pristine here at the back. Jack's a good ironer. Yeah. That'll do. Right.
Well, the first time I met Marian, at around 5:30 on a sunny summer's evening, I was going up the stairs to see my friend Arthur Gibney. This tall, blondie woman with a pair of red trousers was coming down, and we said hello. She said, "Are you waiting for the choir fella?" And I said, "I am. Would you like a drink?" And she said, "Yeah." And we disappeared to the pub across the road in Baker Street. And I don't know, we discussed books. And the discussion then got heated about Mr. Hemingway. And she thought he was a terrible man, and I defended him on his book on bullfighting, which I said was the most definitive book I ever read on bullfighting. That didn't please any party, so a discussion ensued on blood sports. And it went on from there. And that was the start, I would say, of 40 years' conversation. I can never remember a moment in all those years when I said I'm bored.
The government today responded to the deepening crisis in the global financial system with an unprecedented state guarantee for the country's banks. The result? Taxpayers are now responsible for bank liabilities totalling €400 billion.
Now, sitting across the table from me this morning is the chair of Anglo-Irish Bank. You're very welcome indeed, Sean Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Marian.
You know the rumour mill was flying around.
Of course, that's Ireland.
All week, and they were saying that Anglo was the one.
This was just one bank. It was all of the banks.
Yes, but it would appear that one was teetering more than the other. Did you see an Armageddon coming?
Oh, I did, yeah.
She loved the idea of being part of the national conversation.
We owe our lives to the government and what they did. The Irish taxpayer must be grateful, and we, the bankers, must be very grateful.
Now, when you said the taxpayer should be grateful, I would suggest to you the taxpayer is deeply ungrateful.
I'm sorry, can I just go through...
Because can I say to you...
Also, there was the idea, that institutions protect themselves, institutions tell lies, institutions spin stories.
This was not a shameful position to be in, Marian.
Well, then why is every commentator, left, right and centre, saying that the Irish banks behaved
imprudently, some would say recklessly, in the amount of money given and lent for property deals when the dogs in the street who don't own a house knew that the property market was going down.
And her view was, together, the public and I will try and look at this.
OK, couple of callers in. Now that the banker has said thanks, can he go the whole hog and say sorry to the Irish people?
Marian, I can't say sorry with any type of sincerity and decency, but I do say a very genuine thank you, because that is right.
A lot of people used to say to me, Marian always asked a question I really wanted to ask, how did she figure that one out? I'd have to say, a lot of hard work, is the answer.
There's a certain irony that we have been preached at about how let the market sort it out. And then when the marketeers get into difficulty, they go running to the government.
I mean, her guiding light, as a saying, was Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton says, it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. And Marian took the view, it costs a lot of homework to sound this relaxed.
What people are afraid of is that you guys are going to say, phew, happy days, here we go again.
After about a month after she was dead, I was, if you can recover from shock, I was thinking about it and thinking about her. And I rang Jack, my youngest son, and I said, Jack, we have to change this, And I said, I want to throw a party with all our friends, and we celebrate a life. That didn't happen with the bloody virus. But once it's lifted, we will throw a party, because we had a wonderful life. Pitfalls, all those things. Disasters, many and big, but by and large, a wonderful life.
Excuse me, why are you spending Christmas week cleaning doorposts in Stephen's Green?
Because I feel it's part of my responsibility to ensure that this building isn't demolished as was started last weekend.
Your responsibility as what?
My responsibility, first of all, as a student being paid, helped along by the taxpayer.
An architectural student?
And an architectural student. I'm involved in the business anyway, so... And as well as that, I feel as a Dubliner, I have a responsibility to the rest of the people in Dublin.
I knew she'd been involved in the Hume Street stuff. Dublin was being remodeled, reshaped, knocked down. At that point in time, Marian was beginning to question the old shapes and sizes and how society worked, questioning people and institutions and so on. She was fairly brilliant at honours maths, which was fairly unusual for a woman at that time. And she thought wrongly that architecture was all about honours maths. Then she won the Irish Times debating competition. And I think the debating brought her into a whole new realm, because now she had to think about things probably she hadn't thought about before. But she rang me and said, I'm not going to do architecture. She said, I picked the wrong career.
I was at a party, an architect's party, and I met John O'Donoghue. And he said to me, did you ever think about broadcasting? And I had done a lot of debating and stuff and loved it. Did more of that than I did in my studies. But anyway, and he said that there was an audition taking place the following week for a presenter. It really was like flicking on a switch, and I thought, I would really love to do that.
As you know, last week the Golden Harp Festival was held in Ennis in County Clare. Well, Ireland's entry there was a film
She
called
was starting broadcasting. Had got a job as a television announcer. Thought it was the most wonderful place in the whole wide world.
Now we come to the first of two new My Own Place programmes, and in it we visit the other part of the country. We visit Listowel in County Kerry in the company of Brian McMahon.
I think one of the great eye-openers in Marian's life was when she went to Scoil Katrina. I really do.
Chuck Madrash Skahu Hig Scoil Katrina. Is on who it was Scoil. Vi tú an son an sin?
Bhí. Scoilíntach é. Well, háin go mór lomsa. Agus is tócha gur curúán mé tuis gur tarthaí iontacha acha na scrútathe. Ach nuair a bhí mé an níorvéis sin an fá gur háin sé go mór sin lom a bhí a gháil le rudí cosú le ó nílis agam díospóracht bhí ceolir an bhí gachiile rud gur hasig go seachas.
And it was Oscailige, and the Reverend Mother stood up and she said, "You're here to learn and you're here to question. And if needs be, you have to question us too."
Agus dúirt sí tá sibh an seo chuna álamach chunas ceist a chur. Ní chun an freigra a áil a chun ceist a chur. Agus bheasmise ag an nám agus measam go fóil gur máin rud sin.
And Marian was shocked out of her 12 or 14-year-old boots that the Reverend Mother were asked to be questioned. I think that had a huge effect on Marian, those nuns.
Ach, nuair bhí mé sa chuig go bblion, ban rialta eile hosnig sí bhí sí agin don Gaeilge stáilm, agus ise a hosig a caintling faoi chóirsaí ratha, faoi carta sivíalta, faoi rudaí mar sin, agus hosig sim an sin domsa. Well, beidir go raibh sé meathar chomá, agus hosig an sim an sin, agus lean sé raigetín látániu an.
I think when she got her first job reporting, there was an adrenaline there that she had never experienced before.
Now, how do you and your girlfriend feel about the possibility of the law restricting the availability of contraceptives to married people?
There's so many people, single people in Ireland at the moment using contraceptives. At the moment, contraception is illegal, more or less, in Ireland. And people have to either import contraceptives or go to family planning clinics. The doctors won't prescribe contraceptives for them.
And how would you feel about being in a position of breaking the law?
Well, a law like that is made to be broken.
I think she worked about a 16-hour day. She said, "This is for me. This is wonderful."
The other day, I met a group who were quite high. They were smoking black hash or cannabis, and I asked one of them if he smoked regularly.
Quite regularly. I mean, what actual? I mean, how long? How often? Quite regularly.
Have you ever tried LSD?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Where did you get the LSD?
No, it was freely available.
Freely available where? I mean...
Well, in, I don't know, around wherever you would happen to be.
This was it.
Now, what I think is interesting is who decides what is news. In RTE, on the editorial panel for the news, that is all men. And in the newspapers, the editorial decisions are all men. Now, obviously, I don't think somebody should be in there unless they're qualified to do the job. But I do think that women might throw a different perspective on what is news and what might be interesting to other women.
Very good point. All right, you will on. Very good point, yes.
People often visualise a prostitute as a tough and rather hardened person. Sally Murphy doesn't fit that bill at all. She struck me as a rather terrified person with absolutely no control over any aspect of her life.
And why did you start?
To get money.
And what age are you?
26.
So what are you going to do with the money when you get it?
I'm going to go away. But I always think about my future. I don't like what I'm doing. I hate them filthy outfits touching me. When it's all over, the night is over and you go home and you have a good scrub down. You're just lying there, you can't sleep, you're thinking about all them dirty outfits. when they all have wives, when they should be at home with him.
What's going to happen with your boyfriend? Does he know you're going to England?
No.
So what'll happen?
Well, if I told him, he'd kill me. So I'm just going, settle down. But I'd never do anything like that over in England. I just wanted to be me again.
Did you ever work at anything else?
I worked at sewing, I worked in laundries.
And if you had a choice between the sewing and the prostitution, which would you take?
Sewing. Well, he doesn't want me to. He thinks I earn more money down here.
And do you not think that you have the right to tell him to buzz off?
I'd be afraid. You try living with him.
Do you think women have rights in terms of equality with men?
No. Men walk on you. They think they owned you.
And do you think they own you?
Yeah. They ruin your life. They ruin it as well.
Now, you said you're going to get this money and you're going to go to England. How long is that going to take?
6 or 7 weeks, I hope.
The best of luck to you.
Marian, at some baseline, never changed and certainly never revealed it to the public, you know. And one of the things I was thinking about, if you value yourself by possessions, by job, by golf club, by where you live, you know. For her, those things were not significant, you know. And if you discount all those, you know, the only thing you've left then, in my opinion, and hers, I think, was your humanity.
Tell me about your childhood. Where are you from?
I'm from Glasnevin.
In Dublin.
Dublin,
Okay.
Ireland, Europe, the world.
Your dad was a Garda, I believe,
That's right.
and the man died when you were 12 years
That's
of
right,
age.
yeah. I was very close to him, and I was the baby, and he was a very good father for me, and I only have wonderful memories of him. And he got sick about 7 years before he died, and for the last 5 years he only worked in the afternoons. And I used to have throat infections, so I spent a certain amount of time out of school. So I got very close to him then because he was around the house and I was around the house. And he wasn't a formally educated man. He left school at 16. But I would think he was one of the most educated men I ever met.
He was a serious feature in her life. Now, he died when she was 12. But even at 12, she was a very tall girl. And he used to say to her, because tall women were considered an aberration at some point, he used to say, you keep walking tall and keep you straight in your back and walk tall. And she always did. Well, Marian said to me, you know, if my dad was alive, you wouldn't get your feet under the table. I have to assume from that he wouldn't approve of me, which was fair enough, you know. Her mother was quite a religious woman, a very practical woman. And the father was bedridden with a heart thing for a while. And he decided to read the Bible. For some reasons, the church didn't want you to read the Bible. And if you were to read the Bible, you had to have an informed person beside you who could tell you what you were reading, just in case you were confused. The mammy used to say, great God, Dan, you'll lose your immortal soul if you read that book. And somehow that stuck in Marian's head. So she tried to get her hands on every book that she shouldn't have read. And that was straight up the father's influence.
Hello, Marian, how are you?
Hello.
How are you this morning?
A bit nervous about this afternoon. It's the first time I've ever had a programme of my own and it's going out live, and I must say I'm feeling a bit kind of on edge about it.
What main themes will you be working on in the programme?
We'll be looking at all sorts of things that apply specifically to women, health problems that apply to them particularly, employment opportunities, all that sort of thing. We'll look at the way different roles for women have changed.
That Women Today programme, that for her was a campaigning programme, you know.
Hello, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to Women Today.
This is the first thing to understand quite clearly, that a mother has a unique function, and mothers at home don't fully understand the emotional needs of a child.
I am most insulted at such a statement.
Perhaps I could be allowed to continue, Miss Meehan. Listen to you for a very considerable time.
Well, surely as a mother, she's in the best position to know that.
Do you think the presence of a mother in a home is important to children? Or do you think they're as well off if she's out working?
Listen, presence in a home does not mean being there every minute of the day.
She went through a litany of things. Did I know that women had to leave their job when they got married? Women didn't get paid the same. Women were this, women were that. And I said, oh, Scott, I never knew any of that. I really didn't.
My mother was widowed when I was 12, and she'd 5 kids, and she was a teacher. At that stage, there was one rate of pay for married men, there was one rate of pay for single men, and there was one rate of pay for women.
All women.
All women. And the rate of pay for all women was less than the rate of pay for the single man. She had 5 kids. She had to feed us, educate us. She did it, and she did it very well indeed. That sounds Neanderthal nowadays, you know.
Our mother used to teach in Phibsborough. Had to take less salary than a man. And Finucane would say, why is that? You know, she's a good teacher. Why is that? You know, and that lack of equality drove her mad, you know.
Another member of my family worked in the civil service. When she got married, she had to quit her job.
It was a different era. And it's only when you look back and see how conservative we were, and people used the word priest-ridden, and it was Rome's way or no way. Her mother taught the younger children, and she prepared them, I suppose, for confirmation. And she had them all lined up, and they're all sitting in their pews. And John Charles came in, and he said, which is the illegitimate child? And he asked all the kids their questions. And he walked past the illegitimate child. And the mother, who was a great card-carrying Catholic, this shocked her. She couldn't believe it. And for years, all the time I knew Marian, this came up. How could a human being do that to a child?
So now straight into today's programme on sex education.
She was moving hearts and minds and changing opinions. She enjoyed every moment of it.
If I could start with you, Clodagh, can you tell me how you came to an understanding of lesbianism?
Well, it certainly didn't come in a blinding flash. It was a gradual realisation. I suppose when I finally accepted that I was a lesbian or did something about it was in my early 20s.
Right, we have a caller on the line. Good afternoon to you, Brendan O'Brien.
Good afternoon, Marian.
Hello there.
Yeah, I want to object to the amount of airtime given to certain minority groups. I refer in particular to the homosexual, or rather sodomites, as what they should be called, because the act they perform is sodomy.
Okay, Brendan,
Actually, I also want to say that as for AIDS, which originated among sodomites in Africa, I believe it is definitely a punishment from God, just as he punished Sodom, the city of Sodom, for the exact same perverse behaviour.
Okay, Brendan, thank you very much indeed for calling. We'll leave that there.
A couple of priests started reading her off the altar. One priest called her the flea in the bed, and Marian was so thrilled because she figured that at last some recognition was being given to women when the church had to respond.
Can you tell me what exactly happened in the church in Dingle yesterday?
The priest, Father O'Connor, gave a very long sermon, which was very extreme in tone, and I found it very objectionable. And I just spoke up and said he was abusing his position, that he was making political statement after political statement and that he shouldn't do so. I got an enormous round of applause.
You got a clap inside in the church?
Inside in the church, yes. I was very surprised.
Hello, Father.
Hello, how are
From
you?
Dangany Coote.
How are you?
Tell me your side of what, as you perceive it, what happened yesterday in the church in Dingle.
A woman heckled and interrupted, and I was amazed at that bad manners. If you go into an infant's class in a primary school and a little girl wants to go to the toilet, she'll put up her hand and she'll say, "We carigum do the mock."
Mm-hmm.
But this lady didn't even do that.
Mind you, she's not an infant.
That's the surprising thing about it. She's an adult.
And then the feminist movement came out big and strong, and there were very serious women sort of began to demand rights, to demand equality in front of the law. So there's a whole field of change happening. And then the thing that I hadn't really thought about in any depth until, strange enough, Marian died. She was in a rural setting. The only communication a lot of women had with the outer world, the amount of phone calls and correspondence that came in from women all over Ireland, you know, really opened a lot of people's eyes and the dissatisfaction with their situation.
I remember her as a trailblazer, with that honesty, with that integrity, with that fearlessness at times. She wasn't afraid of church or state.
She was just touch the ordinary people, you know. Had a way of getting people to speak. By the time she was finished with them, they had told her more than they intended to tell her, you know.
She was such a lady, and she'd be so sorely missed because there was so much more there.
I don't know, my weekends, it will be very, very, very different because of her loss. It is a great void in so many of our lives, for many of us.
Cold and flu symptoms? Take new Salpa Cold and Flu Multi-Relief Max Sachet that relieves all cold and flu symptoms. New Salpa Cold and Flu Multi-Relief Max Sachet is only available from pharmacies. Try new Salpa Cold and Flu relieves all cold and flu symptoms.
Being gentle on your baby's tummy, you know it's important for their contentment. Cow and Gate Follow-On Milk is inspired by our knowledge of breast milk and is specially created for babies. Cow and Gate Follow-On Milk.
Is Das daily return driving you to Lanny? Look, it's back again! Stop juggling and take control with the new Flash! Dust Magnets! Simply shake up the Dust Magnet's fluffy fibres to trap and lock that dastardly dust wherever it lurks, without moving objects around. Done and dusted! New Flash Dust Magnet, the must against dust.
Get them the gifts they'll really love at Harvey Norman, like the AirPods Pro, featuring up to 2 times more active noise cancellation, transparency mode, and now adaptive audio, which automatically tailors the noise control for you to provide the best listening experience across different environments and interactions throughout the day. From $299 or from only $27.54 per month with tech credit. Shop in store today or online at harveynorman.ie for 2-hour click and collect with our best prices guaranteed. Christmas gifting with Harvey Norman.
Oh, I remember all the sad times too, and all the crazy times. But it's not part of grieving at all. I don't think, you can explain your own personal grief to anybody. Endless psychiatrists and tap dancers and all that sort of stuff to tell you what you're feeling. It's just a huge, big gap in my existence I have to cope with.
You mentioned there a minute ago you went through marriage breakup. When did you get married? You were married for a short period of time. Were you very young when you got married?
24.
24?
He was a really, really, really nice guy.
What did he do?
He was an architect.
Oh, he was an architect, was he?
Yeah.
Acrimonious ending?
Like, we really got on brilliantly, but we just weren't a good marriage. You know yourself, I mean, you've had breakup. I mean,
Been through it too. John, your husband now, tell us about John a bit. He's a man who likes working the land.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, yeah.
He's great.
When we met, we were both married. I had a wife and children, you know. And getting separated from the people you marry is a very emotional, difficult thing for all parties, you know. And I think both she and I felt a tremendous amount of guilt over it. There's this sort of mad chemistry that pulled us together, and we shared so many underlying things in common. Somebody said, you know, we were like two 15-year-olds that were obsessed with each other and never grew up. When we began to think of a relationship in some way, I was in business, Marian was in architecture. And then the waypoints would be joining a golf club, Marian probably joining a bridge club. And it all seemed so predictable. So then you're faced with choices that you pick a different life. You pick a life of continued interest and, I presume, continued risk. I know in the early days, Marian was only given a fortnight's contract anytime at RTE, and I was never sure where the next book was coming to. But there had to be more to life. Our answer to that was curiosity, I suppose, you know. How does the rest of the world work? Why does it work that way? And what influences people? What influences society? And so on. And that was the path we set ourselves on, rightly or wrongly. And then we bought a farm in Westmeath, of which we could ill afford. Marian worked very hard to involve my first children, Jocelyn, Neil, Timothy. Then there was Sinead and Jack. We always had 8 or 9 children running around the place. Then we had 2 adult children who came down every weekend to us, Nuala Whelan and Nell McCafferty.
Well, Gay, you always leave me speechless when you make ignorant statements such as you've been making since the show began.
What was the ignorant statement?
Well, for example, you quote Marian Finucane and Kathleen Watkins as example of women in the media. Marian Finucane is about a year old in terms of radio presentation, and Kathleen Watkins appears only in the summer. Since I came south in 1970, from 7 o'clock in the morning till 1:30 in the afternoon, I hear Mike Murphy, Gay Byrne, Rodney Rice, John Bowman, Liam Nolan, and I've had them up to there, Gay. It goes on year after year after year. Women do not exist in radio. We are an invisible species.
Marian was very shy. And when we got to parties and I wouldn't go, she always rang Nell. And she claimed for years that she hid behind Nell. And Marian was around 6'1" or 2" in her high heels, and Nell was about 4 foot nothing. Now, it was a funny sort of camouflage, but she believed she was secure behind Nell, because Nell would barge in and battle.
Yes, I object to being called a midget in television. The fact that I am 5 foot nothing and not ordinary is something I've just about had enough of.
Quite an extraordinary thing, what makes you feel secure, you know. It was a great time. It was a great time. We ran a sort of an open house, and there was a lot of very interesting people that came down or passed by or, for some odd reason, managed to drop in.
RTE Radio 1, it's 14 and a half minutes to 2, and Liveline is presented now by Marian Finucane.
Hello there, and a very good afternoon to you.
She figured her function was that people reveal themselves, their values, their losses. It was a people-driven sort of belief, you know, and it was, I think, essentially a belief in humanity, you know.
Your view is that your experience was one of relief.
It was one of relief, and I think that all these men priest on questions and answers last night, they cannot know what it's like to either be raped or abused or have an abortion. It's something that they're never going to experience.
She also thought that her audience was very intelligent, you know. People could make up their own minds.
RTE are very prone to any little hitch in the church at all. They're prone to blow it up out of all proportion.
But would you not accept that it's an important part of Irish life?
Well, it is, of course, an important part of Irish life.
Well, now, what would you like to hear on programmes?
I find now the best programme to listen to is Mike Murphy and Ronald Collins.
OK, Margaret.
Well, anyway, thanks, Marian, for your programme, and a happy Christmas
And
to
the
you
same to you, indeed.
An chlár bhfuil mi sé gobar gachlá Liveline. Mai sin tú leis, cloisiú tú, inisio limnic, inisio chorcaig, inisio lís, inisio Kildara. Agus gná daoine muinte na haireann agus iad a caint agus carpéród atá an agana os Cornanina.
On our wedding day, I told her if she was not on time, I wouldn't be there. I was very, very big-hearted. I waited 10 minutes, and I said, sorry, folk, Mary has called it off, and I walked out of the church.
You did not?
I certainly did.
So that's it, and you never talked to her again?
No, I've seen her, yes, of course. She's a bitter old woman today with not a good word to say for anyone.
Hello?
Hello there.
Marian?
Yes. What's a fishing widow?
Well, it's a woman that is left almost every Sunday while her husband fishes for maybe 15 hours.
Every Sunday?
Almost every Sunday, Marian.
I think Marian wasn't a cynical journalist. There was always a sense of wonderment about human behaviour. Oh, senses at home started off. You'd never believe this. From my perspective, she's the easiest going woman in the world, you know. I mean, if I said we'll climb the Himalayas or we'll go to the bottom of the ocean or, you know, we'll meet somebody somewhere, she would say, why not? We might read for 6 months on a country before we went to it. We always started off with some high-minded ideal that we would go and see how this or that worked, and normally it descended into chaos. The edges between Marian's study, research, holidays, work were always very blurred, you know. Myself, Marian, Nell, McCafferty, knew love well and used to travel here and there together. The rule was, if you were eating, you couldn't read, because Nuala would have her book propped up in the corner so she could talk and read and eat at the same time. Nell wasn't to ask questions that might cause civil disturbance, which she frequently did. We did a million things like that, you know. Always adventures, always questions to be asked, mainly no answers. It was the good life. The only real sadness I knew with Marian was death of Sinead. Drop of a name, anything, cry her eyes out. Tried very, very hard to keep it out of the public arena, but I think that shattered her. We were driving along, Sinead in the back, chatting away, and she said, I have a terrible pain in my leg. And I said, right, we'll go and see the doctor. And the doctor said, I want you to go in to his rooms and I want to talk to you. And 2 nurses came in with him and a social worker. And they say, your daughter has leukemia. Wow. And for once, neither of us had a question. You just sat and wondered, what the hell is this? Myself and Marian had led, for what we believed, others wouldn't, a charmed, wonderful, happy, gay, carefree life. We were irresponsible, let me be quite clear. And suddenly, bingo, you're looking at something that's deadly and it's real. And you have to get sane or whatever, Marian was doing a daily programme then. She broadcast and then drove home and took over the second shift of minding our daughter. Then you're just on a roller coaster, day in, day out. Chemo the next day and all that, and they were getting terribly sick. And I gave her a bone marrow. I was the only one that nearly matched her. And it seemed to work for a short time. We were all over the moon, and I had a very sore bottom, and then bingo, it came back again. I suppose one of the things that bedeviled us all in history is the fact that 10 years on, she would have been cured. But just randomly at this point in time, there was no cure. Before we decided that Sinead would have no more treatment, the game was over, God, did we have conversations, endless stuff, will we, won't we, And there's a liberation when we made the decision. We weren't looking at our daughter as a victim. This was running it out, as best we could, The kid came home and she learned to ride a pony, or she thought she rode a pony. She learned to pull pints up in the pub up there and get her wages on a Friday, and she was allowed the dog in bed, which is a big breakthrough, and so on.
And you're welcome indeed to the programme today. We had an amazing amount of calls in on the programme yesterday.
Mary went to work every day with the full knowledge that the child was dying, but it was her way of coping with it. She believed that she had to stay sane for Sinead. Marian's view was that if she was there all day long, she couldn't hack this facade, and she'd just sit and cry. And that wouldn't be good for Sinead.
From all of us here, until tomorrow, a very good day to you.
I would think when she finished her programme, she walked out the station and drove home. And I would have thought, day in, day out, that was the hardest drive she ever did, And you could see sort of nearly measured the decline, like a slow hourglass running out, And there's nothing you could do about it. seemed to know, and we tortured ourselves. And she died in my arms, which was good for me, and I hope good for her. And then Neil and Jocelyn, I think, carried her up to bed, dead. So bonded the whole family together. No, Marian never recovered from Sinead's death. Never. And it was always there, you know, always. And one of the things she wouldn't do, I'm not too sure why, is she wouldn't visit the grave. I don't think she could. You know, she's buried down the road there. So I pass her grave every day, and I normally say hello, and it's another of my survival waypoints. And I have a very good relationship with Sinead. Now she's buried with her mother, which was Marian's wish, you know. And I haven't said hello. I don't know why. I don't know why. Marian took a view that life was terribly transient and very random. It was a random meeting that got her into broadcasting, a random meeting that we met, places we were in, either at the right time or the wrong time, a lot of them the wrong time, was totally random. And that randomness is the sort of stone in your shoe. You don't know when it's going to pop up. She was very, very certain of that.
Cold and flu symptoms? Take new Salpa Cold and Flu Multi-Relief Max Sachet that relieves all cold and flu symptoms. New Salpa Cold and Flu Multi-Relief Max Sachet is only available from pharmacies. Try new Salpa Cold and Flu relieves all cold and flu symptoms.
It's flu season, and children are twice as likely as adults to catch the flu. That's why all children aged 2 to 17 can get their free nasal spray flu vaccine, a safe and effective way to protect them and the rest of your family too. So make an appointment with your GP or pharmacist. Visit hsc.ie/flu.
Action. We fundamentally are connected. She is so driven.
Sekwalo nomathema kasabhale nencwadi ncane semnambithi nomathema kasabhale nencwadi ncane amusemnambithi amunomathema.
We were invited, or Marian was invited by the South African government to come as a journalist.
Nice to see you. How are you? Very nice to see you.
One of the things she insisted on was that we stay in a township, in a tin shack, you know, mosquitoes coming in the door and out the door. Rats, or big things like rats, which terrified her, running up and down the walls in this place and so on. That led us to a nunnery, which was run by a Scottish and an Irish nun.
Hi, George. Hi. How are you? I'm very well. It's lovely to see you.
And they were nursing these children till they died. And as each child died, they put up a brass plaque for it.
And as you can see, this is the plaques for all the children
that have died just in this house alone.
Just that's in this house?
In this house alone, yeah. So they're all quite young.
Sheila, 1st to the 10th, 93 to 99. She was 6.
And I think it was the brass plaque that got to Marian, because suddenly she opened up and started crying.
When you're talking to them, do they say, well, am I going to die?
One of them has actually says, am I going to die? Only one of them ever said that to me. And we just say, well, you know, we can't put a time on anybody's death when anybody's going to die.
They're ground down by poverty, and they're ground down by HIV/AIDS, and they're ground down by the stigma, and they have all of that against them.
One of the nuns said, we would love a place in the township where the children could die and their mothers, if they had any, would be near. I said to Marian, you know, I figure we could raise enough money for that. We said, yeah, it's the least we can do. Somehow, it's connected to our daughter's death. I can't tell you how. You had the ghost of apartheid following you around everywhere, you know. How do you build a hospice? We'd never done any of this. Two enthusiastic ignoramuses.
Hello.
Tell me what's your name?
My name is Tava. My name is Asunila.
We went 4 times a year. The Irish government rode in and gave us money. The Irish people rode in and gave us lots of money. And then the schools in Ireland started helping us. They built houses as well, the kids, and we built extensions to schools and ended up with about 10 centres.
It is such an honour and a pleasure for us to be here today representing Friends in Ireland on this fantastic celebratory occasion and celebrating your achievements in what you have built in building these facilities that will provide love and care and hope for your community. Now, I know you all have another language, so have we. So, le coranach agus cordis, rot deir an ober agus gudeshiv slán. That's basically good wishes. Thank you very much indeed.
Somebody said, you know, you saved 25,000 children. We were very impressed. We never counted. I never knew how many kids, but actually we went back through the rolls and it was around 25,000 children got a chance.
In honour of Sinead, we wanted this bench placed here. And Sinead will always be in our thoughts and our prayers every day. And especially the patients are sitting here, and I'm here every day.
Thank
so
you
that's
very much.
Yeah.
That's at all. That's the least we could do. The least we could do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Where Gayburn was retiring, Marian was given the slot.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you.
And they built it up, looking at issues of the day and the light and the darkness of all people's lives and so on.
Sinead O'Connor, your life took an extraordinary turn this week. Can you tell us about it?
Well, last week it was Thursday, the 22nd of the 4th, 99. I had the massive honour of being ordained the first ever Latin Tridentine woman priest. And may I mention that God also had the massive joy for the first time in his career of hearing a woman say a mass.
One of the things she did, which frightened, I think, politicians after a while, if a minister was coming in to talk about a new act he was going to pass or whatever, Marian read the whole act, not once, not twice, many times, and she read the small print. And if the minister hadn't done his homework, trouble.
Joe Jacob, who's Junior Minister with the Department of Public Enterprise, you are in charge of minding us, I understand, in a national emergency.
The Taoiseach has put in place immediately in the aftermath of the atrocity of the 11th of September. The Taoiseach put in place a coordinating committee involving a range of departments.
OK, so I got my message 7 minutes ago. What would have happened by now?
By now, how will the information and advice be given to the public?
Yeah.
And Marian, your question and the answer to it will be on my fact sheet, which will be in every home in Ireland weeks from now.
But tell me now.
I will tell you now. All information will be issued immediately, Marian.
Yeah. Well, say it's a bad situation.
If it's a bad...
Say a plane crashed into Sellafield. Say the wind was blowing this way. And it all happened 8 minutes ago.
Yes.
What advice do we give to our citizens and what happens?
We would be talking about iodine tablets.
How do we get our iodine tablets?
Now, that will be in the fact sheet when it gets to your home, okay?
No, but you
Marian,
tell me, you have the fact sheet
Marian,
in front of you.
And perhaps
what does it say in the fact sheet?
I'll tell you precisely what it's saying at now, and this will be more explicit when it goes out. The draft I'm reading at the moment, as you asked the question, from the National Emergency Plan for Nuclear Accidents fact sheet. And as I say, that will be in every home.
Do you feel confident that the proper preparations have been made to protect the citizens
Marian,
of this?
can I say this to you with the greatest certitude? I feel as confident after putting 2 years' work to put what is described as the best nuclear emergency plan in Europe in place.
But I'll tell you, I think, were a great fan of Michael Littleton.
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
The late Michael Littleton.
The late Michael Littleton.
He was a mentor to all of us who started in radio
That's
around
right.
that time.
And he talked then about a whole change in lifestyle in Ireland and the fact that there are more couples where both are working outside the home, that there is the possibility of, now, let's see, of maybe giving the weekday kind of treatment to the weekend, and that there might be a good audience there.
Sure.
So
That's what you're
the
hoping will
plan.
happen.
And if it doesn't work, we can blame Michael Littleton.
Of course it can.
And there's nothing you
and
can
he's
do
not
about
around
it.
anymore
That's right.
to
Yes,
quarrel
sadly,
with that.
Yeah.
And that was the start of the weekend and the soaring listenership. So instead of a graveyard, they now had a thriving commercial entity for Saturday and Sunday.
Cold and flu symptoms? Take new Salpa Cold and Flu Multi-Relief Max Sachet.
Anywhere else. Christmas gifting with Harvey Norman.
I'm a bad girl, but my takeout better. What you need, dude? I could cop a taco platter. Got me a
And you're very welcome indeed to the programme this morning in what I kind of regard as my new address, and I hope that you will make it a regular date with us. Martin McGuinness, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Mary.
And the magnitude of the journey that you have gone is quite something else. I was looking at pictures of you and Queen Elizabeth. That distance from the IRA. Tell me about what happened when your mother found your gloves and your berry in your bedroom, your IRA gloves and berry.
Well, my mother was shocked. This happened at a time whenever Derry was going through incredible trauma. And many young people like myself made a decision that we would fight back against the forces of the state.
She loved live broadcasting rather than recording, because there was an edge on it. You don't know where it's going to go. And that gave a frisson of danger, which she quite liked.
Gabriel, good morning to you.
Good morning, Marian.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of you, I gather.
God,
can't help you. I think that the government pay lip service to the arts. I don't think they really care about it. I don't think they think it's of any real value. Although they go on about how important it is, they don't really put anything in place that would indicate that they're serious about it.
Christy Moore is with me in studio this morning. Would you mind awfully giving us a blast of Lister and Varna just to remind people of how it sounds? Just a little blast of it.
Well, I listen to you every Saturday and Sunday morning, and the least I could do is sing what you ask. Oh, Lord God's treble high for this hour of the morning, okay? You'll be sorry when I'm finished. Anyway. Oh, listen, Varna. See, it's so early, Marian. Listen, 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 Varna. I can't make it. Oh, listen, I'm going to have an heart attack here.
Sorry to have done that to you, but thank you very, very much indeed.
You're glad I finished there, aren't you?
She kept saying, I listen for a living. That's what she did. She never offered an opinion, certainly in public or on air, you know. I mean, she's highly opinionated behind it. She said if you ask the right questions, you will attempt to get near the truth anyhow.
Our guest this morning on the programme is Nuala O'Phelan. She's usually been on this programme in the past for her books, but today it has to be said in much sadder circumstances.
Marian thought it was a great honour that Nuala should ask her that she would talk about her own death. And it must have been very, very difficult for both parties.
When you talk to people about this, how do...
This is my talking to people about this. I don't talk to people about this.
Does it arouse or cause in them to consider their own mortality?
I don't think so. I think there's some wonderful rule of life that means that we do not consider our own mortality.
I know when they were setting up the interview, Marian said to Nuala, we've got to get a table or something between us. I'm too close to you emotionally. And we'll get a table, and this will give us a distance between us.
I thought that there'd be me and the world, but the world turned its back on me. The world said to me, well, that's enough of you now. And what's more, we're not going to give you any little treats at the end.
I would have thought that Nuala would be too busy dying to give an interview. But Nuala wanted to say, this is what it feels like when you're dying.
What I'm hoping for, and I don't think this is going to happen, but if I could have this, I kind of hoped there was some way of fading away. That's to say that you lay in your bed and you were really a nice person and everyone came and said goodbye and wept, and you wept and you meant it, that you just got weaker, that sometime in the middle of the night, on your own as you must be, you know that you're just about to go into the dark. That's what I want.
Okay, listen, thank you for that.
It was well worth doing. You sure it won't give people despair?
Well, just on that point, because you've travelled your journey now in your head and in your heart. And I don't want to give other people despair, because the fact is that people do get cured from cancer. Many, many people. The majority of people do. And I don't know if you can give people advice from your experience.
No.
Okay, we leave it there. Nuala O'Phelan, thank you very much indeed.
About a month month before Marian died, we were watching another CNN Middle Eastern war somewhere, and she sat up in bed, turned off the telly, turned to me, and said, "You'll never know how much I love you." It doesn't get much better than that. So.
Now, here's a bit of pleasure, I hope, for you on this bank holiday weekend. It isn't every day you get the pleasure of interviewing one of the greater novelists of our time.
I would say for the last 2 years of her life, when she was broadcasting, she was very unwell.
I'm talking about a gentleman called David Cornwall, better known as John Clarke. I began by asking him how he himself was recruited as a spy.
I mean, I was picked up very young. I was studying in Switzerland, and I was approached, and I did some absolutely trivial courier work for the local MI6 station.
Marian really wanted to give up smoking. I just didn't, or couldn't. She had an arrhythmic heart, which wouldn't straighten itself out. When she finished the program on a Sunday, she was exhausted, and it was just the pure adrenaline of broadcasting, and possibly the habit as well, that kept her going.
Okay, listen, thank you very, very much indeed for coming in, and indeed thank you to everybody who contributed to the programme today. That's all we've time for, and from all of us here, a very good day to you.
So we had agreed that she wouldn't seek a renewal of her contract January, February this year. We would end it, and we'd set off on a whole series of new adventures. And this should be, in my opinion, a really interesting sunset walk. And I said to her, "What's it to be?" And she said, "I won't renew my contract." And as our last travel roundup, we headed for India because we had a lot of unfinished business there, so to speak. Before we went to India, she had some sort of procedure on her heart, and the results didn't seem too good. At least I thought they weren't anyhow, and I think she did too, but wouldn't admit it in case she couldn't go to India. We went on this special train that travels across Rajasthan, stops in the big towns every night. You sleep on the train, you eat on the train, and your elephant is outside for those who want to ride on elephants rather than walk. We went to a wedding of a son, a very dear friend of mine, who was marrying a Muslim girl. Jack came as well, and the wedding went on for 5 days. But it was one of the adventures of a lifetime. We arrived back in Dublin Airport on a Wednesday. The next day, I had to go into town to do something. I left her sleeping. I was going to give her a cup of tea, and then I said, "No, I won't." And I arrived back some hours later, and she was still sleeping. I went and looked at her, and she was dead. I just couldn't believe it. That ended a dream, sadly. And as always, you keep saying, had we done this? Had we done that? Had she gone to the doctor? Had she told him the truth, which she wouldn't? And I figured she had a heart attack. She actually died of pneumonia, which was a very strange thing. Did she pick it up on the plane? I don't know. The order of dying would be me first. And I was very happy with that idea. But it didn't work out that. You could say it's sad, but it's the order of things, you know. I've led a very lucky life, except I lost Sinead and I lost Marian, but, you know, I had an easy life, and a good life. Marian always said, you know, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, and there's a huge truth in that, whether you believe in them or not. What you see with me is the tip of the iceberg. You see tears, sorrow, and there's a big lump under that that's very personal. I don't wish to talk about it. I don't understand it. And I hope that somewhere in that morass, there's a coping mechanism, and I hope to find it. But my tears don't solve it. Yeah. I end it there, young lady. Can I give you a daft pocket in your head? About 6 months ago, I cooked dinner. It was a roast of beef and all that sort of stuff, and cut all this out, but we had mashed turnips, creamed turnips. I don't know why I said it. I said to Marian, you know, I fucking hate turnips. And she said, so do I. And I said, I was cooking them for you. She said, I was eating them for you. She said, all my life I hated turnips. And I was thinking, here we are, 40 years on, and this was a guarded secret that we both hated turnips. I wonder what other secrets you have, or I have, but turnips was the big one.